Hello, everyone, and welcome to the KSI Chronicles. I'm your host, KSIT7. We have a couple announcements today before we get into our interview, so let's go over them real quick. First big one is a huge congratulations to Clan Ops. Both the new Division CM and CS have recent squad splits. So, congratulations to the squad split of Arcane and the squad split of Merciless. Congratulations, guys, on your new squads, and let's see what we can do. Now, for our departments, we have T&E up first. Competitive play is coming back to KSI. We have a new server in which we have a bot that tracks SR through wins and losses. Once everyone is familiar with how it operates and the rules will be fully ranked rules. Get ready, KSI. If you think you are the best, you have the opportunity to prove it. I cannot wait to see you guys get a little sweaty. I know my guys in Arcane are a little sweaty, so let's get to it. Yes. Okay, now graphics. Graphics needs more work to do. From profile pictures to Twitch templates, we do it all. Make sure to submit a request or ask an officer for help. And our last announcement is going to be from productions, okay? There is a new clip submission area for productions. So if you want your gaming clips to be used in a clip montage or even used on our socials, we'd love to see them. And it should be at the bottom of our Discord server, and if you need help, don't hesitate to ask an officer. Now, for this interview, I had the pleasure of interviewing KSI Ridden 77. He is a co-founder in CS, he is also a join mod, and he's a co-head of the graphics department. So I'm so excited for you guys to listen to us having. Hey Ridden, what's up? How you
How's it
doing?
going, T? I'm
I'm
doing good.
good, good. Okay, so welcome to the podcast. You are a co-founder in CS. We got two divs now, and we're moving and grooving.
Correct. We're keeping the trainer rolling.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into the KSI stuff, okay, I want to get to know you, let the members get to know you a little bit. Um, so could you tell me, what you do for work, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, most definitely. So, for work, I am a field supervisor for a renewable energy construction company.
Dope. And if
So,
you could explain that a little bit.
yeah, when it comes to what I do, basically, I'm on the solar division of the renewable side. So, there is multiple renewable sides, the two biggest being wind and solar. So, I'm on the solar aspect of things. So usually we're the ones that build the utility style solar farms that you may see off the interstate or you may see on some of the back roads within current cities you live in or either current cities you've traveled to. We provide power for usually the city that the farm's being built within. Sometimes it's not just for that city, sometimes it's for certain individual stores or corporates, which is located within the state. But most of the time we build it for the actual normal everyday consumer to help lower light bills and different things like that.
Well, that's cool. And what do you do exactly? Like what's your everyday kind of thing that you do at work?
Well, everyday thing, basically, there's three steps to the job career that I've chose. One of the steps being foundations, when then the second one being what we call is racking, and then the final being the overall PV side of things. So I'm in the racking division of it. So I'm the step after foundation, foundation being land clearing, water clearing, erosion, stuff like that, helping making sure that animals don't get trapped inside fields or so forth, so on. It makes it safe for the wildlife around because we try our best to not disturb any habitats or anything going on around everybody. So like I said, I'm in the racking portion of the situation. So basically, we come after all the foundation, which we hang what we call tubes, BHAs and different things like that, which is basically it becomes the foundation for the PV module.
Well,
So
neat.
on an everyday basis, I'm basically just the person out in the field making sure everything's being done right, making sure everything's up to code, making sure we're making the county inspectors happy, make sure we're following all the codes that we have to follow to make sure, like I said, our main goal at the end of the site is to make sure we build a site that's up to code, to building inspections, county codes, and everything. And the biggest thing is just make sure we've disturbed no natural habitats, no habitats of any animals, and we're doing our best to keep all of them out because when we build these, we're not trying to take someone's home away. They was there before we was.
I love that. I think that's really even, in today's climate. We talk about the environment and keeping the environment safe, and I think that's great. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that more energy companies are hopefully coming into that mindset.
Agreed. I do agree because it is an important thing. We all got to live on this planet. We should all live in unity.
Absolutely, like in California, the California sagebrush is endangered because people just there's so much development that it's just going away. So
Yeah, we
crazy.
have in Arizona because that's the current state I'm working in. The biggest thing we have to worry about in our fields is these little owls. That's completely different than any owl I've ever seen. They don't like to sit in trees. They like to bury themselves in the ground.
Yes, 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 the little burrowing ones. Those are cute.
And yeah, they're really little. They're not nowhere near the normal size owl because I originate from Georgia, so we got big old owls back home. Compared to these, they look like little squirrels.
Oh, they must be cute though. I'm sure you see them a lot.
Never seen them on the field, but I've seen them outside of work.
Oh, that's crazy. Is there what other like wildlife is out there?
Oh, we got a bunch of different types of lizards, bearded dragons. They look like bearded dragons, but they're just regular lizards. We got a bunch of them, and we got a whole bunch of snakes because we do work. Usually, we try to be as remote as possible when we're building these fields. So, like I said, we're not disturbing habitats, and we're not disturbing cities, and we're not disturbing anybody that's around them because it is a noisy process to be made. It's kind of loud. You got roughly about 400 workers out there. So, if you was a house right next to a field, you may get a little annoyed. So we try to stay as remote as possible.
Dang, yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's hard too, trying to be as remote as possible, and I'm sure people get upset and they go a little crazy.
Oh, I've had certain situations, yes, where people's been a little on their cuckoo side versus certain situations where the original landowner's been our best friend and they loved us being there.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad you get to have good experiences with that too. I think that's important to like a job or
Yeah,
anything
I
in that matter.
prefer I prefer the solar side of things because I have kind of dabbled a little bit in the wind side. I'm not a fan of it because usually when a wind farm gets built, you're not really like a solar farm. We try to stay remote, but most of the time, when a wind farm is you come up across a farmer that's got 3,000, 4,000 acres of land, and we build it right in his field with all of his animals. So we run into the chance of dealing with wild cows, horses. Most of the time they're just interested about what we're doing, but I've heard horror stories where people's been charged at by bulls and cows and bison and buffalo and different things like that because they're building wind. Wind doesn't really take up a whole lot of space. I mean, it takes up a whole lot of space over time, but it's not one thing that's like a solar farm, whereas we try to get a whole plot and make it where we're keeping everybody's animals safe. Whereas a wind, you're building it usually inside of a rancher's field. So you got his animals there.
That's kind of insane, but kind of cool. Like I'm like you get to see all kinds of animals. Maybe they're nice.
Yeah, I mean, we've had cows in our field. We've had hogs, not in this state, of course. You don't really see as many animals besides snakes and lizards. But in the past, when I've worked up north, I've seen horses in the field. We've had cows in our field. 90% of the time, they're non-hostile animals. They're just curious.
Yeah, but if my brain, if I was doing that, I would want to be like have like a Disney princess moment, where all the animals just come to me instead of working. I'm just petting a bunch of cows. Not what you're supposed to be doing, but I
I
don't
mean,
know
we've
how
had
you.
it happen.
I don't know how you. I don't know how you just don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like I couldn't. I don't know if I could do it.
Factual. Factual. Like I said, we've had it happen. I'm a big horse person. I got horses back home, so, when we've had horses wandering through the field, I've led them back home. I've messed with them a little bit. I've petted them, been respectful of them, but at the same time, it's kinda just a habit because I have them back home.
I love that. Oh, I love animals. Speaking of animals, thinking of things you like, um, I know that you are in graphics. Duh, we kind of run it together. Um, but besides that, where did you get your love for art, whether it be digital art or any other media of art? Where did that come from?
In actuality, I actually never had any type of interest in digital or well, I can't really say paper, but digital style art because when I started my art journey, it was just learning how to do like graffiti and stuff. It always interested me because of bright colors. And it started out, I'm gonna say young, because my dad liked to draw and he was into more along the line of realism stuff. Like he liked to draw portraits and stuff like that. So, kind of like black and gray. You really didn't have too much colors and, just watching him draw and seeing some of the cool stuff he did as a little young kid kind of inspired me to want to pursue and learn a little bit more about art. And I was probably around my middle school, high school career, I started actually learning to do graffiti and different things like that. And I've even scheduled and got a few small gigs around the local community I was living in to paint stuff on the side of owners' buildings and bus stops and different things like that, just to liven up the community. And that was really the start of my art journey, I would say.
Well, that's really cool. Did you do any pieces for the community that you just absolutely loved?
Yeah, so for in my community, it was a real small community. We probably had about 1,500 people to 2,000 people within inside the community I grew up in. So one of the big things I done when I actually got it from it was a little gig that the city had offered me. It was to do the bus stops, because the kids, and our bus stops were I would say they had been there, I don't even know how many years, but they'd already became dull and old looking, the gray had already started fading, turning to white, and all the black had started turning gray. So I actually got a chance to go around and do every bus stop in the small community I lived in and repaint them and liven them up. Right. Put a bunch of bright, bold colors, use reflective paint, just so it would make that if you was an oncoming vehicle, you would be able to see the bus stop better than what it was like. Because, like I said, they was kind of in rough shape.
Yeah. Well, neat. I love that. I love that you do community service. Not a lot of people do community service.
hmm And that kind of like started off my art career. Because then I moved up North State, Georgia, towards the Atlanta area, and I actually got a gig to do a convenience store that happened to be, and this is where my art career really kicked off in actuality. So I was doing this convenience store of this owner that we was real good friends with. And I can't remember what I put on the side of his store. I think I just put the name of the side of his store in bright, bold, like wild style graffiti style lettering. And there was a tattoo shop across the road. And one of the local artists was walking over there to get a drink and some snacks, because they had a big appointment. And he actually came up to me and started talking to me. And he expressed interest in what I was doing and expressed interest in my art style. And it kind of kicked off my career because it led into me apprenticing for said tattoo shop.
Oh, fun. How I mean, I have tattoos. So, what was the experience of being an apprentice like?
It was an interesting time, I will say that. It was interesting, We it had its ups and downs like every job does. But yeah, it was interesting, he was able to help broaden my spectrum when it came to art. Because like I said, I was never really big, had no interest in digital art, but he was able to teach me how to take something digitally and implement it to someone's body. Because not everybody's body is exactly the same as the next person. So he's able to help me take something that was 2D that I was putting as 3D on a wall and taking it from a 2D image that's on a tablet, a computer, whatever you drew it on, and put it on someone's body.
See, that's amazing. Like I and it's cool too because it's the whole process of getting a tattoo, even for the person getting that tattoo, is crazy. And even some people's request for what they want as a tattoo. So, um, have you did you see any crazy requests that people had? What was the vibe that you got from your shop that you were apprenticing at?
The vibe was great. It was called Magic Dragon Tattoos. Um, it's located in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and it was I wouldn't say like old school grunge style tattoo artists, but they kept that old school feel to it, and but all the artists was cool. Every one of them was welcoming. People get scared. They see a tattoo artist covered in tattoos. The guy that trained me probably didn't have a piece of bear skin on his body,
Oh, love
but
that.
you see him in public, and most people would be like terrified of him. But he's just a big old teddy bear. He was a big old teddy bear. He just enjoyed art. That's why he got all his tattoos. Like he was a lover of art, and so that's where all of his tattoos basically come from. But for the most part, working in the shop it was interesting because every artist had something different to offer. The one I was training under, he done some of the new school style of art, so it fell right behind graffiti. New school's all big, bold, goofy, crazy looking individual characters, wording. It's meant to be bold, it's meant to stick out. And then we had some people in our shop that was specializing in realism, which is nothing but black and gray. Then we had the old school artists that done traditional, which is all bold, old school sailor style pin-ups, stuff like that. And then we had I would say he was a mixed variant artist because he really didn't specialize in any style. He was the type of person that if you wanted a crazy idea, he was the type of person he's gonna put it on your body. One of my favorite tattoos he ever done was he done a Game Boy with a Charizard and a Blastoise coming out of it.
Okay, that's cool. I like that.
That was his style. So he was the one that, if you had a crazy request, he's the one that got the tattoo because he was all about it. You could come to him with some of the craziest ideas, and he'd be like, "I got you. Give me 24 hours to draw it. I got you." And he's gonna bring it to life no matter what it is. And like I said, I've seen some crazy tattoos walk in that shop and beautiful pieces walk out.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure. There is so many good artists out there. Now, do you have a favorite art style of tattoo?
Mm. When it comes down to it, I would probably say, which is crazy because my whole graffiti background, but I would say learning in that shop, I started leaning towards more along the line of the style of what most people call black work, which is a darker style of tattooing, but extremely detailed style.
Oh, I love those. And I didn't know that was what it's called, but I love those. I almost have one of those. Of a knight and a skull. And the skull, it's all black and gray work. And
Yeah.
it's very detailed. So I love that style. It's great. Now, why or how before we get into the KSI stuff,
hmm
when did you decide to leave being a tattoo artist and go into the field you are in now?
It was kind of a heartbroken type thing, because I had to move actually because like I said, it was really more of a heartbroken thing because I had to move. So we had some dramatic family events come up. So I had to move out of the current townhouse I was living in, not
Mm-hmm.
only because I wouldn't be able to afford it, but overall just it was time for me to get closer back home to family wise because of certain situations that was going on. But yeah, when I came back home, I was actually driving home and I seen an open interview sign on the side of the road, like probably 15-30 minutes down the road from my house, and I just happened to pull in. And I done an open interview, and I started out as a grunt worker on the ground, and I got to where I'm at now. Started this journey in 2018, so 7 years ago almost.
I don't know. 2018 doesn't sound 7 years ago. That is insane. And you're still in it.
Hard to
And
believe.
you're still liking it.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, man. It's 7 years ago.
Dang.
Yeah, I love what I do. And it's not like saying that I love the work I do. It's I love the interaction that we have with people and what I do. And like I said, sometimes it helps change a community because the power may not be just going towards a big corporation. It may be going to help a school or something like that along the line of that. Especially in the northern states, 90% of the time when we build a field, they're going to help the city that which the field is being built for the harsher winter month.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's hard too when, you don't get a lot of sun.
Yeah, that's what.
like with it like Arizona, it's, sun and 24/7.
Yeah, agreed. And that's why I like, during the beginning of this, I didn't really understand too much about what I was doing. I was just trying to get a job.
Yeah.
But as I started learning, started moving up, started learning more and more, started seeing the business side of things, the actual build side of things, I started understanding something about how the panels themselves works and why they're dual sided like they are. The system actually, it's called a tracking system. That's why we call it racking because it tracks. So it actually tracks the sun throughout the day. It doesn't even matter if it's overcast or not.
Oh wow. That's really cool.
And then they have usually a battery station within, I'm not going to say right next, but within reasonable distance from the field. And what the battery station does is it stores power that is excessively made by said field. So if you have a really good day of sun and then the next day is not too good, the battery station stored all the excess power that was being made the day before. So if it ever turns into the time that it has to use reserves because the field wasn't able to make enough that day, it's got it on reserve ready to pump it out.
Interesting. Okay. I didn't even know that. Because I mean, I remember a couple years ago, most of our high schools or schools down here got solar panels. Um, and I didn't know how they even worked because I just assumed, they would be very similar to the ones you would use on a house. You know what I mean? Um, but that's very interesting. That's actually really cool that we actually are at the point where we could actually do it.
Yeah, we're getting close. I would say we're getting close to the point where we could actually, I'm not saying no time soon, but we're getting close to the point where we could actually probably run houses off of battery stations and solar panels on top. We're getting close. We're starting to get closer day by day because there's a constant improvements every day within the panels ratings and what they can output. And there's constant improvements within the storage stations of what they could take and what they could pump out.
That's amazing. I love that. Speaking of things doing so well, for those that don't know, um, you were pivotal in the splitting of Arcane. Of not Arcane, but Oblivion into Arcane. Excuse myself. Um, so and you've been in before, and
Mhm,
you've been a seven before. So
mhm.
do you think that your time in previously helped you achieve um this current split?
100%. I give a bunch of credit to the community because back in the day, I would say I wouldn't have none of the leadership skills I have to this current day, and I've actually implemented them into real life. It's not just in the community. Like a bunch of the skills that was given back in the day, and a bunch of the skills that we still do give to this day. Like I always stress to upcoming officers or just people that's interested in learning. I tell them, be like, you could use these in real life situations.
Absolutely, because I think at the end of the day, it's, can you communicate? Can you, how do you work with people? Because that's what gaming communities are all about. It's a way to meet new people and to have a steady and safe place to do it. And
Agreed, 100%.
yeah, and it's kind of like the workforce, or kind of how any organization functions. Like they're
Mhm.
supposed,
100%.
yeah, I love that. Now let's talk about the old days. Where are you originally
Alright.
from? How, what, to tell us what was it? What was written back in the day?
Well, Ridden was not a thing back in the day. I actually rebranded this time around. So back in the day, I went up under KSI Blur, which a bunch of people may know me by because I was known. I was around.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I joined back in 2014. I want to say early to late 2014, and my original recruiter's name was Oasis, and he recruited me into the squad Atlas, which was at the time under the vision of Double Helix, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my lifespan within the first time around was between 2014 to 2016. And during that 2 year span of me being in the community, I stayed in Atlas until the point where I became the Gen over Atlas and led it to a split. And then I became the co founder of Double Helix.
Nice. So you were doing
And
good back then.
yeah, I always stay hungry.
I love that. Now, what are some? Do you have some fond memories from back in the day?
Oh, yeah, 100%, 100%. Memories back in the day, I can't say you can't repeat them to this day and time. Memories back in the day, it was just all nostalgia. Like when
Yeah.
for my recruiting process back then was you had to prove that you was competitive enough. And
Oh, okay.
so you usually got thrown into a COD map with some of I'm not going to say most competitive people because it wouldn't be fair, but that would put you in a map with some of the better people at said game that you was trying to be recruited off of. Like, I remember back in the day, if you didn't have the money to change your name, the Sevens would always host the event, which was called a name change event. You're getting thrown into Nuketown on COD or Rust on COD, and you're doing a sniper battle for a name change against a bunch of other people that's also wanting said name change because they're wanting to move up.
That's crazy. I didn't know Double Helix was like that because when I joined in 2015, right? I was in Demonic Mayhem and definitely different atmosphere. De- Definitely different atmosphere. Like they did not care how good you were. Come on over. We were, I love it
And,
though. I didn't know that.
and,
I didn't know Double
and
Helix was like that.
yeah, I wouldn't say that was full competitive, but like if you was, it depended on the game you was being recruited on too, I believe. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it did or didn't because when I took over, I always made it where depending on the game you was recruited on, depending on what what we was expecting, basically. Like, if you was getting recruited off COD, we was doing a bunch of events and tournaments back then with a bunch of other gaming communities, so we wanted to keep people as up to shape as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, we was still playing Halo back in the day when I got recruited, but the squad was slowly turning into BO2, like Black Ops 2, but there was still a bunch of good Halo players around. That's another nostalgia memory. I remember nights of that, custom-made maps and everything.
And,
Custom events and all.
and people put hard work, dedication, time, effort into those maps. And
100%. There was a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into them because you'd get on a map and you'd be like, whoa. You'd swear up and down it was made by the actual developers that made Halo. But no, it was made by a random KSI member that spent a week of their time to make it for an event that was happening later that month.
oh, it was amazing. Or even I was in a Black Ops 3 squad for a while. Um, and even then, right? Even people making emblems or people teaching people how to make emblems. Or, people being like, "Look, I'll get on your Xbox and I'll make you the emblem, okay?" You know what I mean? So, um it was just the little things. It was the little things people did for each other, which were great.
Yeah, 100%.
And we
And
still have that today too.
yeah, we have it now. It's just I feel like it's a whole different atmosphere now because I feel like we've advanced in technology. We've advanced in what stuff we do. So we're able to make even more unique and crazier profile pictures or emblems or something like that for whatever they're needing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, do you have Um, a favorite or proud moment as a general or a seven at that time?
The dib split. I would say
Oh,
the dib split.
tell me about that.
The dib split was a interesting, like a very proud moment because it was a split that no one seen coming. It was kind of similar to my come up this time, where it was a dib that was considered to be, dead. It was one that was starting to teeter on the ledge, whether or not it was going to go into the graveyard or not. But yeah, it was a proud moment. It went from one squad to roughly about seven within a 2 year span. And it was a very proud moment to be considered to be one of the co-founders that split a whole div into another div, which formed Triple Helix.
Damn, that's crazy. That's really cool though. I mean, even looking at us now, right? Um, the possibilities of us, expanding even further with how well we're doing is insane, and it's all because of people like you and other people in our community that have that same motivation and that same drive just to get it done.
It's all passion, you know.
Yeah,
You just gotta have passion for it. With passion and drive, and just overall, we're chugging right along. Like I said, the train's head's moving. So
yeah, absolutely. And speaking about passion, um, everyone has a why. We always ask, "What's your why?" But I'm gonna ask you because I've never got to ask you. What is your why? Why are you in KSI?
why? I would honestly say because back in the day, it was that outsource for basically leaving problems behind. So and it was you everybody has problems in real life. We're all human. We all deal with certain problems from day to day. And it was the outsource I used to help me basically forget about what was happening in real life and let me just put myself in a video game with a group of people that I never met. I met some of them in real life, but most of the time it was just a voice through a headset and they cared, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just to take myself out of reality and put me in virtual reality. And it was a good outsource to help me forget about what was going on around me, no matter how bad the situation was.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that. Absolutely, absolutely. Shoot, I'm the same way. I think me and you both are very similar. We want to be here to help and grow and create a space we want to hang out in.
100%.
Now, since you've seen the worst of the worst, right? Going from one
Mhm.
squad to a divisional split, um, and how different KSI was back in the day until now. Um, what are some of the improvements that we've done now that you really enjoy, or improvements that you think have benefited the community from then till now?
I would say the biggest improvement I've seen from back then to now, and this is one that a lot of people that's been back in the day would say, that, us as sevens back then, we would lose our humanity, basically to say. And here we are now. Like back in the day, I would have never seen like CEO or chief of staff or director gaming together with
Mm-hmm.
normal
Mm-hmm.
members. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody could say this. Like if you heard the chief of staff's name, you knew you was in trouble. If you heard the director's name, you knew you was in
Oh
trouble.
yeah. Oh
If
yeah.
you heard your seven's name, you knew you was in trouble. Now, sevens are more along the line of we're just trying to show y'all and everybody that we're not the same as we used to be. We are here to do the same reason y'all are here. We're at a game, we're here to have a fun time. Back then it was you heard your seven's name or you seen your seven's name in a party you got invited to, you knew you had done something wrong. Now you get invited to a party by the chief of staff. He's probably wanting to play games, he just wants to chill, relax, and have a good time.
Yeah, play some Warzone. Lose a
Exactly.
lot. Maybe win.
You lose a lot, we lose some, we win some, but at the end of the day, we're having fun while doing it.
Absolutely. I love it. Now, what do you think about, I guess, the way we operate as a whole, right? For instance, recruiting's different now, training's different now, and even the vibe of the community is different now. Do you think that has been beneficial?
Yes, agreed. I do agree that that has been a beneficial leap compared to what it was back in the day. Yes, we deal with our struggles from day to day because of, gaming communities range back of like KSI's birth was back in 2002. So, gaming communities have been around a while. So one of the biggest struggles we always deal with is finding the people that doesn't have a bad taste in their mouth for community. But it's gotten so much better because we're able to show where, yes, some people was like that, but we're not. We've changed. We've made the leap to change. The training, I remember back in the day when I was doing all my training, you got a message on Kick
Mm-hmm.
and you had to read through it yourself. And if you needed to ask questions, you had to type up a text message to send and ask questions. And you may get a response. It may be the next day because of time zones. People work back then just like we do now. But now, when it comes down to training, you're sitting there physically with said trainer and they're teaching what they're trying to teach and they're speaking what they're teaching. And if you got a question then and there, you could raise your hand, be like, hey, I got a question, and get the answer then and there. And you're able to physically have someone read through a said slide with you and understand it. Like I said, back in the day, you got the message, you got a doc on your phone from Kick,
Yeah,
and you
a
tap
Google
on it, and
Doc.
you had to read it yourself. And like I said, if you had a question, you'd be like, "Oh, let me back out, let me shoot a text message." You may not get a response to the next day, and then you done forgot what your question was and why you didn't understand it.
I mean, shoot, I still have the test that we used to have to do, at least for DM.
I
Um,
still remember those tests that we
yeah,
had to do.
it's extensive. Some of the questions, back in the day, you had to know every single person in, every squad basically, for officer staff. I had to know what co-founders were over what gens and what gens were in what squads. And nowadays we are way more laxed because we kind of all know each other. We all hang out with each other. If we're in a VC and I say to the party, "Oh my gosh, this person's on," and everyone's like, "Oh, cool, let's go hang out with them." So, I think our relations between each other has just boomed dramatically.
It's grown in leaps and bounds, because like you said, everybody, we're so tight knit now where you basically know everybody just from the way they talk and how they sound. You don't even have to look at their name to know who's talking. You already know who they are.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and especially when we get new guys that come in. Um, they get sucked in. The members just suck them in. They just get them gaming, doing stuff. I know we have a couple members that have helped me with games and are very sweet about it. Um, and it's just nice to see that people just want to hang out and they care about each other. It's very different.
Very, 100%.
I don't.
100%.
Oh, absolutely. Now, what are some things that you can tell the future officers that are listening, or people that are listening that are on the thinking about it but they don't know? What are some words of wisdom? I'm giving you a soapbox.
Words of wisdom.
Yep.
All right. So, what I would like to say is basically never cut yourself short. Just never cut yourself short. Always make reasonable goals that you can achieve. And if you don't make said goal, look at what held you back. And it may be something so minute and so small to look at it more as instead of a failure, look at it as a learning experience. Look at it as a speed bump in the road and look at how you could improve upon that. Because all officers coming up, yes, they feel like some of them, for example, some of them, when I've been teaching said training for officers to get promoted or come up, we always stress that you don't have to be a jack of all trades. We don't want you to be. We want you to be good at what you're good at and let us work with you what you fail at. You know, let us work on your weaknesses. Don't don't try to be the best at everything because you're not gonna be. You might think you are, but in actuality, you're never gonna be the best at everything. You can't be. It's impossible.
Yeah,
You
and
want to try to find your niche, find what you're good at. With me, I use what I'm the best at is what I do in my real life every day to day. I'm a really good logistics person. I have to be. So it's been something that I've been able to teach people that wasn't so good at logistics and just, follow your dreams. When I rejoined this community, I rejoined in 24 and I set a goal of achieving my 7 back as a co-founder within a year. I made it happen. I'm living proof that if you set reasonable goals, you can achieve those goals if you just put your head to it. Look at every failure you make as a learning experience, treat it as a road bump, get back up off your face, keep on walking forward. And it happens. Life's gonna knock you down.
absolutely, absolutely. I think that it's hard. It's hard for people to get over weaknesses sometimes because we want to be good at everything. But it's good to know that it's okay. Everyone's perfect. Everyone's a human. That means we're not perfect, but we're all perfect in our own little ways.
I agree completely. Everybody's good in their own little ways.
Now, before, we end, is there anything you want to add or say or promote?
Mm, no, I don't really have nothing that I would like to add or promote, really. Besides, like I said, just on my soapbox, shoot for the stars. Don't be mad if you fail. Just get back up.
Amen to that. Thank you, Ridden. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. And you know what? We'll probably have you back on eventually. I would love that.
I agree.
All right. I'll see you later.
Thank you, T.